I can still visualize it as if it were a picture. The instant that everything changed. The office's air was thick, with the odor of printer toner and burned coffee. The faint echo is mixed with the hum of fluorescent lights overhead, of outside, forklifts. I was examining the weekly logistics schedule while hunched over my desk when my supervisor, without a knock, Daniel Carter, entered my office. When he wanted to remind people, he flashed his thin smile. Who was in command? He spoke softly, as if he were saying, "Alice, you'll regret it if you go against me." This was not the first time the phrase was tested. I didn't recoil when he tried intimidation for the first time, but this time there was something definitive and piercing in his voice. Understood. I simply nodded once. What I didn't say, what I concealed behind a serene face, was that he had already committed a grave error. I worked in scheduling for almost 9 years at Carter Logistics. But eventually I became the person who identified errors before they became catastrophes, the unofficial issue solver. That was important in a field where a delayed shipment could cost millions of dollars. But Daniel didn't give a damn, was more focused on securing large contracts, corner offices, and ensuring his name was attached to every accomplishment. It was a straightforward lease, and I saw the email he didn't since I was there to make him appear capable. Our largest distribution warehouse needed a renewal letter, but the subject line was boring. Deadline. I recognized the structure. 120,000 square feet of prime. The hub for more than 60% of our shipments is an industrial area just off the freeway. The property could have been rented to another person right away if the renewal date had passed, which was in 3 weeks. Take care of this. Daniel had sent the email to operations along with a letter. I read the attachment, and operations naturally assumed he meant it was already handled, which is how things got lost. My fingers drummed against the desk at least twice. If someone else had fastened that. However, Carter Logistics was unable to function in the area without experiencing significant delays. Each significant shipment, particularly the one at the most recent executive meeting, he boasted about a $20 million import transaction that depended on that facility. I struggled with it for days, and Daniel hadn't even set a reminder. Since this company was the source of my paycheck, I felt compelled to warn him. Then I recalled the previous time I had presented him an issue when I had pointed out a routing flaw 3 months prior that would have put 5 days off a contract delivery. He smirked and said, "Stay in your lane, Alice." He didn't have specialists. Instead, he had people who were too afraid of him to disagree. I have experts for that. I sat up late that night, feigning to be working on freight schedules, and while the warehouse manager was on duty, we began to converse. I asked him casually if he had heard anything regarding the lease. I discovered that the property owner had been attempting to get a response from someone in Carter's office, but they hadn't. Daniel might hear me in a different way that he couldn't ignore if he didn't appreciate my voice. In order to get information, I called my brother-in-law, Mark, a commercial real estate agent who owed me a favor. Quick. I received the complete terms of the warehouse leasing in less than a day. It wasn't inexpensive, but it wasn't impossible. The renewal window was open, but it was ending in less than 2 weeks. The security. The deposit was high, but I had savings, the type Daniel thought I didn't have, the sort I'd been steadily accumulating for years. Have because I was but another interchangeable cog in his head. Mark's voice was steady over the phone. "The documents are yours after you sign them, but if you want them, we can have them drawn up tomorrow." Complete command. I didn't think twice. Take action. Daniel gave me that the morning. The same morning, the lease agreements arrived in my inbox. He grinned and said, I'd regret going against him. He wasn't aware of it yet, but I signed, wired, and took possession of the building that held his most precious shipments. The deposit and the transaction was completed by 3:15 p.m. The email confirmation felt heavier than it ought to have. This was leverage, not merely a feature. I wasn't careless, I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it, but I also couldn't let go of the way he had gazed at me when his $20 million shipment from overseas was due to arrive 2 weeks after. He said those statements, I would discover how pale a man may become upon realizing that the ground he is standing on is someone else's. He wouldn't be able to stop it by then. The following morning, the warehouse seemed different. Not in a physically, the same buzz of the industrial fans, the same rows of tall shelves piled high with pallets, but to me, I parked 2 streets away, not in his warehouse, which was now mine. The property manager, a slender man in his 50s with a casual smile, greeted me at the side, wanting everyone to witness my arrival. He shook my hand and remarked, "You're the new tenant," in a voice with astonishment, as if he had anticipated a business representative dressed in a fitted suit rather than a woman wearing jeans and a basic jacket. "That's right," I said, adding that I would want to keep it secret for the time being. "No modifications to everyday activities unless I specify otherwise." He nodded and took a set of keys out of, "You have complete access to his pocket. The terms of the lease are exactly what you observed. You can renegotiate, terminate, or sublet, as you see fit." The metal keys were cold to the touch, heavy in many ways. I continued my regular activities at Carter Logistics for the following week, clocked in at 8:30, continued to send the same emails, and continued to act as though Daniel's barking didn't irritate me. Commands along the hallway. I had to be patient because he could adjust if I moved too soon. He had been boasting about his $20 million package for months, and the aim was to wait until it arrived before let reality strike him like a steel door slamming. I would go outside. During lunch breaks with my phone tight to my ear, conversing in private with Jeff, the warehouse security supervisor, a straightforward man who's been protecting that property for almost 15 years. "I'll do as you say." On our first call, Jeff responded, "Give me. But you sure you want to play it this way?" Daniel is the kind to cause trouble. He couldn't see my little smile, but that's the beauty of it, Jeff. I'm not causing difficulty. I'm simply upholding my lawful tenant rights. By Thursday, Daniel's disposition was nearly arrogant. He walked into the office that morning, conversing while sipping coffee from the pricey downtown cafe, loudly on his phone about a new era for the organization and streamlined operations. All customs documentation has been cleared, and I heard bits and pieces of his talk with the operations manager. On the 14th, trucks will run directly from the port to the warehouse for offloading. Perfect execution. With my fingers on the keyboard and my eyes on my computer screen,